I don't think I'm ever ready for what To Your Eternity wants to deliver, and the concept of an immortal eventually wanting to give up is all but expected, but to see Fushi admit it, he was scared to admit it because the Watcher's always there. He doesn't want to say that I'm ready to end it if I lose anyone else. You know what? It's game over. I'll let them consume everything. And for him to just say, then you'll just start from nothing. There is no escape. There is no death. You will just be back to square one and you'll have to do it all over again. And for Fushi to still say, I don't care anymore, it really feels like Fushi's at a make it or break it point. Obviously, I don't think he'll end up in a way that he'll go back to nothing and won't continue. The show will go on. But I think this moment right here is the most crucial point, arguably, in Fushi's life since he first started to get connected to people. Because without help, I don't think Fushi can carry on. I think Fushi will lose more. It's all but guaranteed. He outlasts anyone he comes into contact with. But I think what's most surprising about a character who I've been interested in seeing ever since I saw the opening, there was this flamboyant guy he just gave me the impression of either he would just be comedy gold or he would be a prick. Like, those are usually what the flamboyant characters are, and they're usually not useful. And to my surprise, I will fight anyone who says otherwise. Bon is legit a good dude from what we've seen. Now, for some reason, it seems like one of his siblings, most likely the younger brother, is heir to the throne. And maybe it's because they just don't take him serious enough to be king, and that's probably why he's trying to bring the immortal back, show his worth, that he can be trusted. But based on what happened in this episode, while yes, he definitely has some screws loose, he was talking to himself, he was like having conversations with people who weren't there. It does seem like he's a little crazy, and maybe that's the reason he's not heir to the throne, because he talks to himself, maybe he hears voices, and that can't be trusted for a king unless you want the whole kingdom to go up in flames. But with that said, he seems like a guy who generally wants to help, and I think that's the thing that makes him intriguing, is that he's comedy gold on a visual level. He dances around, he does poses, he sits on human thrones, but it felt like by the end of the episode, he was the type of character who could get through to Fushi. He was scared. He didn't want to say his feelings, and he said, it was something along the lines of, how do you know for sure that's what you're feeling if you don't say it out loud? Because sometimes you might feel like absolute garbage. You might think, I do want to end my life, but then you say it out loud and you realize, no, I don't. And I think that's what he was trying to get through to Fushi, and I think it's so interesting to have both him and the male descendant. I think we're 6 generations down the line at this point. We have Kahaku, who basically, apparently the reason why every time it was a female is that the female descendant, the one who takes up the leadership role, has to be female. But as we see with this dude, mother passed away before she could give birth to a female. So obviously you can tell there's probably going to be some pushback in the clan there, all things considered. But honestly, it's one of those feelings of fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And I'm cautious, but I can't help but feel like I generally come to like the descendants of Hayase. I really do. And I think this guy here, there's something about him. I love kind of like one of the first thing he says is like, I'm a dude, don't worry, I don't want to sleep with you like my female descendants, I'm into girls. But then as soon as Fushi turns into one of his female forms, like all bets are off. And from what I understand with Fushi's transformations, right? Fushi is someone who completely replicates that he transforms into. So if he was a boy, he could impregnate someone. And since he turned into a girl, it's not impossible that something could happen there. I'm just saying, like, based on what we know of the transformations, if his transformation has the ability to reproduce, I mean, it's something that's definitely on the table, unless obviously he transforms in the middle of it or something, right? But either way, I'm liking the 2 new characters. I'm not saying I don't expect there could be some backstabbing or little girl moment where you try to poison, but at the same time, I just feel like when it comes to Fushi's life, the reason he's okay with being captured, he's like, sure, come capture me, I can escape at any moment. Or at this point, he's generally excited to see Hayase's descendants is because he's immortal. There's no sense of normalcy for this boy. He feels constantly guilty and burdened by 13,000 people have been killed by knockers. That's less than natural deaths and, disasters that occur in the world. But imagine being an immortal thinking it's your job to take care of the knockers and 13,000 deaths are on your shoulder. That is more than the number of people he's met in his lifetime over the hundreds of years. It's something that weighs on him and it's getting to the point of being too much. So to have people who just are interested in him and aren't trying to poke him and, cut him open, it's no wonder he's to the point of being like, I'm excited to see the next generation of Hyace's descendants. I'm fine with going with this flamboyant prince because I'm not going to get hurt, and honestly, whatever you can do to me is obviously going to be way easier to deal with than the pain of how many people he's lost in his life. Last week with Tighnari's death, he pretty much he wanted to give up. He didn't want to be around people, and they were saying like, you need people more now than ever sort of a thing. And to see the diary scene, which if you do go back, I think it was in episode 2, you see I think there's a moment at one of the inns when he's trying to find new people. You see the diary of Tighnari on one of the tables, and apparently, throughout the years, eventually someone took a peek other than Fushi. And to see how he reacted to that, it hits you, because To Your Eternity is one of those shows that doesn't make you always feel things because a character dies, but it's sometimes just the way they can get those emotions through, and it makes you feel sometimes as lonely as Fushi, because you realize just how painful his life is. Now, right now, we're kind of in a good situation because the prince is trying to make Fushi happy, and the concept of having an army to help deal with the knockers, it would solve a lot of things. I'm not saying I don't expect a lot of death, but at the very least, there's hope, because Fushi mentioned, I'm not sure if it was in episode 1 or if it was in episode 2 of this season, but he mentioned how he can deal with the knockers, but he's not able to be in all the places that they pop up, meaning there's people who ultimately die. When we look at it from our perspective, the world could go on in the way that it is and be relatively okay. 13,000 people dying from knockers is less than cancer in a year, right? It's honestly bigger than the knockers are currently killing. But for Fushi, someone whose entire purpose is to fight the knockers, the number of people that he hasn't saved, it's no wonder it eats away at him, as he isn't able to have a connection longer than a couple of years, and even if it lasts 100 years, 100 years to Fushi is nothing because he lives forever. And there's so much burden on this character, and just to see how he is ready to give up and give in, I think, on one hand, it's kind of perfect that the two people that are close to him at this moment, they are a descendant of the person who arguably has hurt him the worst, and you have this very charismatic, bubbly personality. If these two don't stab him in the back and actually help him, even if they were to die, I think Fushi could go on, because you would have a moment of people can change, or people aren't just, their parents or their grandparents or their great-great-great-great-grandparents, right? So to just see how, people are the way Fushi will continue, or people are the way Fushi will end up giving up, it's interesting to see that he's right in the middle, and we don't know which side he's going to lean on by the end of this arc. I mean, we have a church ready to take him, so there's a lot of ways I think both of these characters could end up protecting him, but I am cautious. I am ready for any sort of backstabbing at any moment, but as it stands, I'm not going to deny my feelings. I like both of these characters. I truly do, and even if one of them ends up not as great, I still appreciate what they're doing for the arc right now, but I do hope they both end up being solid the entire way through. I won't lie, our boy has basically a parasite arm going on. He does hunt the knockers, but he essentially is a knocker, and that feels like it could implode at any moment, though hopefully Fushi can maybe cut off an arm before that happens, though it is pretty cool seeing basically a parasite-like arm if anyone's ever read the manga or seen the anime. I just love the actual attack, as worrisome as it is. But I don't know, To Your Eternity, it messes with me. It's definitely one of the series I most anticipate and dread all at once, because I never know what's going to happen. I love how they use the birds as microphones, though. I do have to mention that. They literally record like a microphone. It's just, I love the way the author can just have fun with the setting, but still make it feel modern in a weird way. But thoughts and feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. You can consider supporting the Patreon if you want to see my full live reaction to today's episode. And you can also get video shoutouts like Scott Raymond is getting today. So appreciate the support. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.